First of all, again, thank you for having me. I am more than pleased to talk about my experience with both the trial and the vaccine. I did a lot of research on the vaccines before I agreed to participate in the trial. The questions I had were the questions that everybody else either had or still have, and that is, can the vaccine itself make you sick with COVID? Can it create serious and significant side effects that can alter the quality of your life? And if that's true, what's the likelihood that that would occur? How successful will the vaccine be in beating back the effects of the disease? Those kinds of questions were my basic focus in doing all the research that I did before agreeing to join the trial. I will tell you what I know about the vaccines that are on the market now first, and that would be the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. Unlike the many vaccines that you all are familiar with, that might be polio, measles, rubella, the flu. There is nothing in this vaccine that exposes you to the actual virus. The way the technology works is they create a what they call a messenger mRNA. It's a single strand molecule that they encapsulate in sort of like a fatty substance. And then that's what they inject in your arm. Once they inject it in your arm, that single strand molecule then looks for your cells. Well, why does it look for your cells? Well, the message that they put into this molecule tells them to find a cell, inhabit that cell, and to make a certain spike protein. So the messenger, once it's inside of the cell, it takes the cell over and it sends this message to the cell to make a protein spike looking, I guess if you've seen the picture of them, they're like balls with spikes on them. Well, for your cells, protein is a normal function, or making protein is a normal function of your body. So when the cell gets this instruction, it does what it normally does, and it will make the protein in the way that it's described by the single strand molecule. And what it does, it makes a replica of the virus. It creates a spike protein that looks just like the virus, but it has no pathogenic qualities. It cannot turn to the virus in your system. And the purpose of creating a replica that looks like the virus is to alert your immune system that when something like this shows up, you need to attack it. And so the first shot that you get sort of ignites your immune system. It alerts your immune system that something is going on and that we should be ready for it. And then the second shot sort of hardwires your immunity to hopefully create a lasting immunity to the spike protein, so that if you are ever infected by this virus, your immune system will be ready and it will attack it. So I went through the trial, and when you go through the trial, they don't tell you whether or not you have whether or not they injected you with the actual vaccine, or they gave you a placebo, which is nothing more than saline water. And then they tell you to put your mask on and go out and live your life. And in that process, you come back in on a regular basis and they draw your blood, send it to the pharmaceutical companies, and they evaluate your blood to see if you have been exposed to the virus, if you've developed antibodies, or if you get sick. And so after almost 6 months, they pulled all the data, and they identified the vaccine I had was Moderna, and they identified all of the people who tested positive for the virus. And then they opened the data up to see how many of those people actually had the vaccine or how many had the placebo. What they found was 95% of the people who participated in the trial and who were exposed to the virus, 95% of them did not get the vaccine. Only 5% had the vaccine. So that means if you get this particular vaccine, and the results for Pfizer are very similar, if you are exposed to the virus, you have only a 5% chance of getting infected. If you don't have the vaccine, you have a 95% chance of getting infected. Now, once you, and the larger point was, even if you are exposed to the virus and it gets in your system, the chances of you developing a severe infection that could lead to your death on the Moderna vaccine was 0. Nobody who had the virus had any severe infections. Nobody went to the hospital, and nobody died. On the other side, there was a substantial infection. Unfortunately, one person did die during the trial, and that person had the placebo. So based on that data, it was pretty clear to me that, if I didn't get the vaccine as a part of the trial, I was going to get it when they offered it to me. And so when they were given the authority to move ahead and market distribute their vaccine for emergency use, GW called me in and asked me if I wanted to see what my results were. I said, yeah. And they opened they call it unblinding the data. And they told me, so, well, you got the placebo. So do you want the vaccine? And I said, yes. So I was injected with the vaccine on February 5th, and I got my second shot 3 weeks later. Now, the second shot comes with a kick for about 30% of the people. And what that means is, after my second shot, about 5 hours after I got it, I had pretty significant muscle aches. I had heavy fatigue, and I had some pretty significant chills. And it just shut me down for about 30 hours. I just didn't feel like doing anything. I wasn't in any excruciating pain, but it was very uncomfortable, almost like you had the flu. But I got the second shot on that Friday. By the time I woke up on Sunday, I think it was Super Bowl Sunday, I was fine. I felt good. So I would, I don't know of any reason why anybody would not take this vaccine, especially if you are a person of color. And I say that because the infection rates and the hospital rates and the death rates for persons of color are 2 and 3 times higher than what we see for our peers who are white. And so if you don't take this vaccine, you are essentially playing Russian roulette with your health and maybe even your life. And they've distributed this vaccine to more than almost 40 million people in the United States. And I forgot the number worldwide. And they have less than a percentage of 1% of anybody who's had any adverse reactions. And those adverse reactions are typically folks who are allergic to some element of the vaccine. And what happens in those cases is they typically give you an EpiPen injection if you have an allergic reaction within 30 minutes of you receiving the vaccine. And that generally takes care of the problem. So the only people that they tell to consult with your doctor before you get the vaccine are those folks who are using EpiPens who have severe allergies. Other than that, they have not, for anybody ages 16 and up, both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine don't give any qualifications about who should and should not take it. They do say if you have a some immunodeficiencies, you should also maybe talk to your doctor. But folks, there is really no good reason to not take this vaccine, and that is especially the case if you are a person of color. So look, I can talk all day, but it's important for me to answer you all's questions so you can get what you want out of this meeting. So I will end my comments now and take whatever questions that you all might have.
You want to ask a question? I understand what he was saying. Okay. Anybody? So just good question. So just to confirm, the people who got sick when they got the vaccine, that wasn't from the vaccine, right? That was because they got COVID.
Right. That was the sickness that I felt was my immune system being triggered by the replica virus and my immune system going in action to fight it.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. So Leo?
He was asking if all the bodies.
Can you say it a little closer to the
if everybody reacts the same to the vaccine, either the Pfizer or the Moderna, but like, do everybody got the same symptoms? Well,
the data show that based on the first shot, practically everybody feels a little site soreness, where your muscle is a little sore where they inject you. You won't even feel the injection. Needles are so narrow these days that you won't even feel the injection. But everybody tends to have a little soreness around their injection site after the first shot. After the second shot, about 35 to 40% of the people who get the second shot, those folks experience some symptoms like I described. Fatigue, muscle ache are the most common. Some people get chills. I got all three. Some people get nauseous. I didn't get nauseous. So I think you can, if you got this, once you get to the second shot, within 3 or 4 hours after you get it, you can probably expect there's a 40% chance that you're going to feel tired or have muscle aches or maybe even get some chills.
And just to confirm, because the vaccine's doing its job, right? It's not because there's 0% chance, because you're explaining that the vaccine is just a replica of COVID. So there's zero chance that you could possibly get COVID from the vaccine, right?
Yes, and to put it more, there is no chance that the Moderna or Pfizer vaccines will give you the virus from the vaccine. Now, if you had polio, if you had the polio vaccine, if you've had the flu vaccine, if you had the rubella vaccine, if you had the measles, all of those vaccines were made at some point from the live virus. And there was a small chance that could have turned pathogenic in your system and given you the disease and made you infectious to other people. Very small chance, but it could happen. There's no chance it could happen with the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. Zero chance.
So why is it important for those of us who do want to get the vaccine? Why is it important to us that other people get it as well?
Because there's a concept called herd immunity. Herd immunity exists when enough people are protected from the virus that it can no longer propagate and it just dies out. Well, if you're the only person in your workplace that has the vaccine, it is very possible for you to be asymptomatic. You not to feel any problem because you're protected, but you could still shed the virus to your coworkers because they're not protected. And so something that doesn't make you sick at all because you're protected can make them really sick and kill them. So it's important that a high number of people in any social setting or any workplace setting that you are participating in it's important that they get the vaccine. It's very important. It's important mostly for their health. You will be fine. The person who gets the vaccine will typically be fine. I still would recommend wearing a mask until you have herd immunity. But if the folks who are working with you are unvaccinated, there's a chance that you could give them the virus, and certainly they could give it to each other.
If anybody else wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, please feel free. Oh, Dinah has a question. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Once you get the vaccine, are you still able to like transmit the virus to others? Like you won't get it, but are you still able to like kind of pass on to others?
The early research says yes, but there's some data coming out now that says this the third vaccine, Johnson & Johnson, there is some data in their initial reports to the FDA that says it also prevents you from shedding the virus if you are vaccinated, but the virus gets in your system. But for Pfizer and Moderna, the two vaccines that are on the market now, it is very possible, based on the early research, that if you get vaccinated and you are protected, that you could cough or sneeze on somebody else. If the virus is in your nostrils, or or in your chest, and you sneeze it out, or in your nostrils mostly, because in your chest is going to get attacked. It's in your nostrils and you sneeze it out, they could very well inhale the particles that give them the virus.
Anybody else on the call have a question?
I have a question. This is Mitchell. I'm I'm at home.
Hi, Mitchell.
I have a number of friends that have received second doses of either Pfizer or Moderna.
Mm-hmm.
And anecdotally, it appears that those that received Moderna have had stronger reactions at the second dose than the Pfizer. Is there data to support that?
I've heard that as well. I don't know that the data supports that. I certainly had the Moderna shot, and I had a really strong reaction. I have known some people as well with both Pfizer and Moderna, and they either had no reaction, or some of them had, or some folks had a pretty significant reaction. So I don't know if the rate of serious reaction is higher for one vaccine versus the other. I will say this though, don't play the game of, you go to get your vaccine and they say, well, all we have is Pfizer, or all we have is Moderna, or all we have is the third one, Johnson & Johnson. Don't say, well, I'm gonna wait until you get the one I want. It's just not worth the risk. Particularly with these new variant, or these variant strains in the community. You want to get as protected as you can, as soon as you can.
Okay, thank you.
And so when you say reactions, you're really just talking about a couple of days until the vaccine kind of kicks in, right? I mean,
yeah,
this isn't like a lifetime. You're just talking about a couple of days.
Yes, for me, it was from 5 o'clock Friday evening to about 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And for some people, there's no reaction. For some people, there's a reaction that lasts not even through the night. So it varies significantly, but it rarely goes beyond 2 days.
So it's like flu-like symptoms for a couple of days, but you get a lifetime of protection.
Absolutely.
So we have a question from somebody who works in a daycare facility who wanted to know if they need to, if somebody tests positive and other people have the vaccine, if they still need to shut down. And a second question they had was, if they're testing all of their staff every 2 weeks, do they also need to test people who got the vaccine?
My phone rung while you were talking, so I missed it. Can you give me those questions again, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So somebody who works in a daycare facility wanted to know if some of their colleagues have the vaccine and someone else tests positive, do they need to shut down the entire daycare facility? And along the same lines, if they're getting all of their staff tested every 2 weeks, do they also need to test people who got the vaccine?
We submitted a question like that to DC Health, and these are the questions we submitted, and this is what they said. To the first question: if some employees at a daycare center have the vaccine, does the owner need to shut down the facility if someone tests positive? The answer: DC Health does not usually shut down daycares. What we have seen is that this is a decision that's usually taken by the owners of the daycare centers. Shutdowns take place when they are unable to trace teachers' whereabouts. In other words, the infected person, where was the infected person all day, or were they around people, multiple people, as opposed to being on site in a classroom. DC Health will always begin by quarantining and isolating when possible. Then the second question was, they test employees every 2 weeks and would like to know if they should be testing people who have gotten the vaccine as well. And the answer is, if they have gotten the vaccine, if they have gotten vaccinated, they still should be tested. And the reason why is, you could be a carrier of the virus, and you could be a candidate to shred the virus and spread it to others. So they would want to know whether or not people who are protected for themselves can be a risk to others.
Hi, Mr. Turnage. This is DeAndre Anderson from the Woodley Park Main Street, right on Connecticut Avenue. And I just have a quick question about additional shots. Since there are new strands coming out, a person like you who's gotten 2 shots, do you think there'll be requirements to get a 3rd or a 4th shot later on down the line?
Don't know yet. Right now, that's the research that's going on. Right now, both the Pfizer and Moderna pharmaceutical companies are saying that a 3rd shot is not needed for these variants, but they are doing the work now to prepare some, they call them booster shots, if they find that as these variants become more widespread, people who are nonetheless vaccinated start getting sick. Then they will come back with a booster shot to protect you. But right now, the treatment regimen is just 2 shots.
Other questions? Anybody? Do you guys have a question? This is such a great opportunity.
I think you pretty much covered all the
You covered it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, I think I heard somebody asking, like, how do they make, or how do they, like, come up with the vaccine, like, so fast? It usually takes, like, longer.
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah. So some people think it's a little suspicious that they came up with the vaccine so quickly when the pandemic is barely a year old. So they're concerned that it's just a little too good to be true.
That's a very good question. If you all recall, and you can check this as well, the actual technology for this vaccine was started during the Bush administration. And it was started because there was a concern about just this, a particular coronavirus. The problem is they developed roughly the vaccine, but it would cost, as we've seen, billions of dollars to bring that product to market. And because there was no coronavirus or COVID-19 in the system at the time, there was no administration, not Bush, not the Obama administration. Nobody was willing to spend that kind of money to develop a vaccine for which a virus had not specifically developed. Once it developed, once the virus emerged, they simply took the technology, the work that had been done over the past 8 to 12 years and perfected it in a 12-month period. So you're looking at really probably 10 or 11 years worth of work. It's just that the initial work was put in the initial vaccines that were developed for a virus like coronavirus really set in refrigerators across the country in the labs of scientists with no funding to take them further. But this technology has been here for a while.
Other questions?
Oh yeah, everyone says, like, what's the difference between the Russian vaccine and the Moderna and Pfizer?
Another question is, what's the difference between the Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson vaccines and the Russian vaccine?
I don't know much about the Russian vaccine. I do have a presentation that lays out the each of the vaccines and what their characteristics are. I will send that to you because there are about 10 or 15 in the world. We only have 2. Now, Johnson & Johnson doesn't use the same technology that the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines use. Johnson & Johnson actually takes a live portion of the flu virus, and then they take a genetic strain from a dead COVID-19, a small genetic strain from a dead COVID-19 virus, and they use technology to combine those to create the message that your immune system receives and then responds to by making the spike protein. So it's a little bit different, but because they're using dead, the genetic material they used from COVID was dead. The virus was dead, and when combined with the they call it the adenoid virus, there is very little to no chance of you getting sick from that either. But it is different technology, and you should be aware of it. I will send you a presentation that outlines the different viruses that exist, the different vaccines that exist in the country, and the different characteristics of those vaccines. A lot of them are very similar.
Great, thank you. Other questions? I have. Anybody else? Anyone else? So I guess we'll just close with one question. Can you think of a single solitary reason why somebody should not get this vaccine?
I cannot offer any reason why anyone should not get this vaccine. The only qualification I would give, if you have concerns about an allergic reaction, or if you have an immune suppressed system, then you should talk to your doctors first. But I can't think of any reason why anybody should not get this vaccine. I really can't.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We are so appreciative of your time and all the information that you shared, your perspective. Thank you again.
Hey, look, if you have any questions, I know it's tough to hear on these during Zoom calls. If you have any questions going down the road, just feel free to send me or Raina an email with the questions. We will answer them. If we don't know the answers, we will get them. You can do that as much as you need.
Okay. Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.